There's some moments in wrestling where you think to yourself, what if? What if this moment actually goes down? What if? Or on the other side, there's moments where you think to yourself, they actually got me. Up to Hulk Hogan signing with WCW, there was no real thought of a heel turn. Hogan had personified everything good in the wrestling world and was very protective of his image. Hogan could do whatever he wanted just because of his name. And while his character had grown stale and didn't establish anything new early on in WCW, there was big plans in hiding. The Third Man. The Third Man was hyped up by the outsiders, and considering WCW at the time, there wasn't much of a thought for it being Hulk Hogan. After all, this man was an inspiration to the kids, and most of his image is centered around being the good guy. But then he dropped Randy Savage with a leg drop and destroyed any hope of WCW having a savior in their battle against these former WWF guys. This is a very surprising moment where WCW went forward with something that was exciting and unpredictable. The heel turn was so well done, with Hogan dropping the leg drop and cutting a promo about how there's a new world order in professional wrestling. And to think, some believed it would be Mabel who would join them. This is a huge swerve and one that few saw coming, let alone would outright guess. Look at this post from July of 1996. They thought it would be cool if it happened, and surprisingly, it did. This jump started a career renaissance for Hulk Hogan and put him on the map once again as the biggest draw in professional wrestling. He already was, but for the first time in years, it was way more emphatic. The effects of this moment would be felt for years to come for both WCW and the WWF, as they would engage in a ratings war to see who was the best. We all know about the Monday Night Wars, but this was the start of it. And it was a moment where everyone was fooled into thinking Hulk Hogan would not turn heel. Turns out he did. The Rock had one of the most insane rises in a year's span. He went from the most hated and vilified wrestler to a potential megastar, all in 1 year. Rock's charisma was undeniable by WrestleMania 14 time. I consider this interview as an important moment in his career to where he climbed a level. The fans wanted nothing more than to cheer for Rock, even though he constantly trashed them with creative insults. The Rock was a guaranteed superstar, and with an amazing face run on the horizon, the WWF decided to do something unique. In midst of feud with Mr. McMahon, The Rock had to endure several hurdles in his road to the WWF Championship. A Survivor Series Deadly Games tournament with the odds stacked against him in each round. There was something to notice though. Every single one of his matches had some sort of controversy. The fastest match in WWF history, the nightstick from Boss Man, Kane being involved in his match with The Undertaker. This set up a final against Mankind, who was positioned as the corporate champion. With no Stone Cold in sight after being screwed over by the McMahon family, Mankind was destined to end the night on top. Turns out, the McMahons had other plans, and this was a plan orchestrated to make Rock the new champion, and most importantly, the corporate champion that Vince had hoped and prayed for. The story unfolding is amazing. Everything from the beginning was excellent, and it's not a situation where you realize it initially, but after looking back. This is the best work that Vince Russo had in his career. Many moving parts, all perfectly executed and aligned. From Mankind having easy matches to Stone Cold being screwed by Shane, who re-signed him to the WWF after his father fired the Texas Rattlesnake. This surprise heel turn led to WWF's then most successful WrestleMania, with Rock and Austin at WrestleMania 15. This one's a bit of a controversial one, I'm gonna say the next one. Vince Russo's WCW had plenty of issues. His first days on the job brought plenty of optimism, seeing as he was considered the man who turned things around for the WWF. While the WCW run wasn't what the company had hoped for, there was few moments that were great and memorable. Now, Russo is known for swerves. Even if they don't serve the story that's being told, and often than not, he does them for the sake of it. Why? Because it's like, you need a surprise, you need a moment. He doesn't think it through. This one, though, was convincing, and it comes down to Scott Steiner's performance. Around Russo signing with WCW, Steiner was nursing a back injury for about 5 months. He had to relinquish the United States Championship because of his injuries. WCW set up a video package in honor of his career, and he cut a sad promo about walking away and retiring. The new NWO, which was a common occurrence at the time, more common than a title change in WCW, which is saying something, the new NWO kicked him out of the group and trashed him. This turned out to be a bad swerve because they didn't let the idea of Steiner retiring set in. And you had reasons to believe he was retiring because of his back injuries and surgery recently. But it's late era WCW and they don't let anything breathe. And it's Vince Russo, so it's like, oh, it's cursed. I included this in here because I've seen some people talk about how good it was in the moment and the fact that it was very believable. And you guys know how the Russo heel turn goes. The guy comes in, he runs in, he stands there with a chair, and he obviously goes to the guy right next to him. Chris Jericho's first year in the WWF was hot and cold. The first few months were very rocky and directionless. Then, the moment the clock struck midnight and a new millennium dawned on the universe, Jericho became comfortable in the company. He was catching fire with the fans. Y2J was one of the most entertaining wrestlers on an already stacked roster. There came a moment in 2000 where Jericho looked like he was on top of the world. On a random Raw after WrestleMania 2000, Jericho got himself a title match against Triple H. This match was energetic and fast-paced. It was a pretty good match, and coupled with the heat and intensity from Triple H keeping the title after WrestleMania, it was one to watch out for. Jericho was intelligent, bringing in the APA for backup, and with a referee slightly against Triple H, the odds were tipped in his favor. The moment the ref counted 3 here, and it was a bit of a fast count by the way, the fans thought Triple H would kick out. So when they see him actually hit the 3 count, they went crazy. Turns out Jericho actually won, and there was Attitude Era magic in the arena here. Incredible atmosphere with the fans fully buying into the victory. Triple H was just a horrible person and everyone hated him. So even if Taka Michinoku got his rematch from the previous week, it would be the same reaction. But it was blue balls and Y2J had to hand the title back because of an illegal count. It's a big moment even though it didn't mean much in the long run. Certainly one of the best moments from the later days of the Attitude Era. JBL surprised the world with the WWE Championship run. His reign was very weird, but Bradshaw grew comfortable in the role as time went on. JBL's title reign was the biggest fluke in storyline. He won the title by following Eddie Guerrero around the turnbuckles, and even though he claimed to be a formidable champion, his wins always came because of luck and timing. It started to get ridiculous, so Teddy Long booked him in a match against the Big Show for No Way Out. It was a barbed wire steel cage match. The match was dry, but the ending was incredible. Big Show chokeslammed JBL through the ring and walked out. He seemed to win the title in this instance. It was a great moment because for a split second, everyone was convinced the title had changed hands. Turns out, JBL's rat ass did what a proper rat does and crawled under the dark space and to the outside to win the match. But it was a good ending, it was very creative, and it kind of showed that JBL's luck was running out because no matter what happened, at the end of the day, he was on borrowed time as WWE Champion. Shawn Michaels' heel turn in 2005 was fresh. It didn't need to happen at all, but it was a welcoming change. HBK seemed like he was having fun out there riling up the fans, and he wasn't even doing anything crazy, but he knew how to push their buttons. So when he showed up to Montreal one night, the fans wanted his head. This was 8 years after the screw job, but judging by that crowd, the wound was still fresh. HBK wasn't allowed to talk much because they drowned him in booze, but even then, as loud as the crowd was, Michaels still didn't get their worst. He mocked the national anthem, said he'll screw Bret Hart again, and threatened him. Then from out of nowhere, you hear that guitar blare in the arena, and the fans were going insane. For one, that entrance song hadn't been heard in a WWE arena since November of 1997. And second, he was talking with WWE at the time for his new DVD, so there was a chance. One moment where HBK sold the return so well had everyone believing Bret Hart would return. He let down their hopes, but it was an amazing fake-out moment. Surely if Bret had returned in 2005, that would have been the moment, right? But it was a nice win here, you know? It kind of showed how good of a heel Shawn Michaels was, and I'm definitely certain that some of you in the comment section bought into the return just for a split second. The Undertaker's WrestleMania streak had become a symbol of WrestleMania. Every year it seemed like the challenge would get tougher for him, and it made every WrestleMania must-watch just for his match. Up to a certain point, Shawn Michaels was the closest to ending it in storyline. That would change with Triple H. Triple H was seen as a huge hurdle for The Undertaker heading into WrestleMania 27. Their match turned out to be the best on the show, but clearly, the magic of this match is felt watching it live. For one, it was an intense battle that tested Undertaker's limits. He was out of it like never before, but the part that got everyone was still on the way. While Triple H in the match had the edge due to his dominance, there's one moment from Undertaker's streak that stands out and actually deserves to stand out more than it should. So to set the stage, Triple H had hit 3 pedigrees on The Undertaker, brutal chair shots to the face, and Undertaker was only fighting on pride, you know, because at the end of the day, it's WrestleMania, and he's not going to quit. He's going for a strike when Triple H ducks and he grabs him and hits this dramatic tombstone that silenced the crowd. Everything about it felt symbolic, and Triple H had a lot of credibility. The energy in that arena was depleted, and for a single moment, the crowd was in a state of shock. They actually thought Triple H had it in the bag. Turns out Undertaker recovered, but that was a great moment and a great matchup on a terrible WrestleMania, so there's that. Fast forward 1 year later, the great sequel to Undertaker and Triple H's battle at WrestleMania 27. Shawn Michaels was the referee for the end of an era match, and despite his status as the referee, he threatened to steal the show, which greatly annoyed Triple H. He wasn't outright saying it, but judging by his attitude, he felt like he needed to involve himself in this big event. So they weren't really on the same page for this Hell in a Cell match. The match was great. It was slow and very different to everything else on the card. Similar to that tombstone, this happened later in the match. A tombstone was countered into a sweet chin music from Shawn and a pedigree from Triple H. The crowd went insane, and all of this happened in a span of 4 seconds. Undertaker kicked out, and it was all so fast. Like, just looking at it here, everything happened at a moment's notice. And it really makes sense for the streak to end here. 2 of Undertaker's toughest opposition from the streak banding together as DX for a moment to end it all. The feeling was so overwhelming once Undertaker kicked out and it set in. You're thinking there's the moment. Turns out it wasn't. If there's one moment that captures this video idea perfectly, it's Mark Henry's moment. After 2 years of plaguing injuries, it seemed very obvious that Henry was slowing down and his time could come at any moment. So when he came out one night on Raw with a salmon suit, it really seemed like the end. Henry cut his greatest promo, reminiscing on the past and his success. The promo was so far away good that you won't find a single one from his career even close to this one. It felt too real, and looking back, the Attitude Era guys such as Triple H, Christian, Edge, and The Undertaker was slowing down at the time, or were retired. And Henry was full-time with several injuries. There was some sorrow in his eyes over never winning the WWE Championship, but he was still proud of the career he had. And it was emotional. The commentary and the fans showed plenty of respect to Henry, who was excited to go home to his family. But then he randomly grabbed John Cena and hit the world's strongest slam before saying that he still got a lot left in the tank. Incredible moment, and again, this is all because of Mark Henry. His emotions were on full display that night and made this promo. The salmon suit, him getting choked up over his words. They were 2 steps ahead of the audience in this one, and it reminds you of the magic and that special element that professional wrestling has. Now, do I think Henry should have won the title? I think logically with the story they were telling, yeah, but it was in between the whole SummerSlam Daniel Bryan thing. I was a bit convinced he would win. I remember the Money in the Bank match, and they actually got me there because there was this one moment where Henry hit the world's strongest slam. I was actually convinced he would win in that moment. This one is tiny, but the moment Neville had Rollins down for the count in a WWE Championship match was crazy. It was half a second, but I remember my reaction. It felt unbelievable to think he had him down for the count, and within a second, you see the rope break spot. It's one of the better false finishes from that era of WWE. When the Shield reunited in 2017, it was very exciting initially because these 3, one way or another, were always going to be tied together. The trio was also a way of getting Roman Reigns cheered, which somewhat worked for WWE. It was quickly going awry though because the Shield's run was nothing close to what it was a few years earlier, and for good reason. Obviously it's not going to be the same because there's a special novelty with them rising up the top, and now they were perennial main eventers. The issue is that they didn't really need each other, barring the one reunion in 2017, and have the need to reform so often. Upon Dean Ambrose's return, he felt left out and unvalued by the 2 brothers. It was clear that a heel turn was happening, and the question was when. But Roman Reigns' leukemia came back and he was forced to leave wrestling to recover and focus on himself. So on that, plans changed. Seth and Dean won the tag team titles later that night in an emotional moment that felt bittersweet. Roman's revelation was the big story of the night, and it made for an emotional moment when Seth and Dean lifted those titles up in honor of their friend. Then, from out of nowhere, Ambrose acted on his instincts and dropped them with dirty deeds. And in that moment, it felt like he knew it was wrong and the worst possible time to do something like this. And Ambrose's emotion sells this heel turn. He still had love for Seth Rollins, but couldn't bring himself to fully trust him, especially after Roman left them alone. Seth in that moment understood Dean's worries, but it only got worse for him. One of the most shocking moments. The fact that they won the titles here would make you think a moment like this would have happened, but then they went and did that. Nobody was even considering this, and it was a special moment in an otherwise underwhelming heel run for Dean Ambrose. A run that made him rethink his decisions and leave WWE. So the moment was great. The moment itself was one of the most shocking from this entire video, but the follow-up was horrendous. I hate how WWE disrespected Shield lore and failed this heel run. The Shield's 5-year-long story was the deepest and still is the deepest in WWE, so to see them turn him into a germaphobe, a loser who loses to EC3 even though they hated him, and all this was wrong, it ruins the heel run. John Cena as a superhero was practically an institution. Cena was everything good when it came to his character, and he probably made WWE billions of dollars as the face of the company. When it comes down to it, Cena as a leading man, a good guy, changes everything for WWE. He's the reason they went PG because he appealed to kids and was very identifiable for them. But as time went on, it seemed like that heel turn was never happening, and honestly, there wasn't much of a reason to do it so late in his career because it required a huge transformation for his character, his wrestling style probably, and the idea of it sounds much grander than the actual heel turn. When he announced his final run at Money in the Bank last year, nobody thought a heel turn was on the horizon because it was his final year, and it was all about nostalgia and turning back the clock. Now, when Elimination Chamber came, the big story was Rock and Cody. We didn't know how it would go, but there was a strong possibility that the Great One would face the American Nightmare at WrestleMania, or he would have a huge part in his story at WrestleMania. Regardless, it seemed like The Rock and Cody was going to have some sort of story advancement when it came to WrestleMania. In a shocking twist, The Rock made John Cena sell his soul. This was a huge moment, and the difference with it compared to the rest is that for the moments before the match, you could say there was a chance there, but it's another seeing Cena actually low blow him. It's a bit of an expected shock where you don't know if they're actually going to make him do it. It's like, oh, you did think about it here, but once you actually see it, it's shocking, it's stunning, it's insane. But it was stunning because a wave of emotions coming right after that low blow, like, wow, they're actually doing this. And that makes this heel turn for me. Now, the follow-up of the story has been very odd. I don't really know what to think about it at the moment, to be honest, because we really haven't seen much of John Cena, but there is a lot of pessimism. Regardless, so this is a shocking moment, so there's that. I wish you guys think of this video. Make sure you hit the like drop on the like button, perhaps the AA on the subscribe button. Peace. How about?